Okay, guys, the purpose of this belt breathing exercise is to give you a few different pieces of awareness about your body. One is the direction and depth of your breath. Two is the expansion and opening of your hips in relation to your breath, right? So if we're going to go into stretching, if we're going to go into movement exercises, we want to be not only aware of our movement, but also aware of any tensions or compensation patterns that we're holding in our body that may get in the way of us being and moving more efficiently. Because I can do all the stretching that I want, but if my body and my nervous system and my breath is still holding on really tightly, then it's not going to give me the ability to have the long-term results that I want. So starting off with this exercise here, we're going to build out a series that's going to allow you to not only feel what your body is doing, but also create changes in it that are going to be a little bit more long-lasting. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I have this belt, just a classic brown leather belt, okay, maybe a little worn. I'm going to put it down as low on my hips as I possibly can while still being able to cinch it. Now, I don't need it to cut off blood flow, and I don't want it to cut off blood flow, but I do want to get it as low on my body as possible and as tight as possible so that I can feel any opening or any closing that I have against this, right? So this belt is trying to squeeze my hips in. What I'm going to feel is I'm going to feel an opening against that belt. So the first stage that we're going to do is just with the belt. So what I want you to do is I want you to first become heavy on the ground. Okay, so all you're going to do is start to tell your body that it's time to relax. My knees are bent, my toes and my legs are turned very slightly in, and my hips, my rib cage, and my head are all moving back against the ground. Okay, so they're all moving back or becoming heavier against the ground. And what I want to do is I want to notice and feel the area where my kidneys are. Okay, so my kidneys are at the lower part of my rib cage. As I breathe in, I want to imagine that I can use my air, the air that's coming into my body, my lungs, to push my kidneys towards the belt here. Okay, so let's take a deep breath and do that. And then exhale. Okay, if you felt your belly just get really big but didn't feel any pressure down, try to make sure that you're not just sticking your belly out, but are instead maintaining a nice structure for your air to be able to push down towards your hips. Let's do it again. And exhale. Good. Maybe as you were doing that, you started to feel your body expand and open up into the belt. Okay, I need to slide my belt down a little lower. Now, guys, what you're going to do for about 5 minutes, okay, or however much time you have in relationship to this video, that the routine that you're doing, is you're going to try to breathe in with the intention of feeling your body open and expand against the pressure of the belt. So I need to make this a little tighter. Okay, so I get a little more feedback. So now the belt is squeezing my hips. As I breathe in, I want my air to push my hips out against the belt. And I exhale. Okay, everything is through my nose. I'm not trying to flex my abs. I'm not trying to flex my lower back. I'm not trying to flex my hips. I'm just trying to have, if my hips were a balloon, open up as the air goes into the balloon. And I can feel the pressure against the belt increase as the air comes in. And as I exhale, I feel it decrease. One thing I want you to work on as you do this is not only your ability to expand more outward into the belt, more in. But now as I exhale, I try to keep that expansion. I don't let everything just collapse and suck inward. If I'm looking for more space in my hips so I can have more flexibility in my hips, or a safer hip, or less arthritis, or whatever it is that's bothering me, then I need to not allow the pressure to squeeze me inward, right? So I get big in my breath. And as I exhale, I try to maintain that openness. Good. I'm not using a lot of muscle to do this. I'm not using my abs or my lower back or my hips. I'm using my breath, okay? That's gonna be stage one of our laying on our back breathing decompression.
For this hip flexion extension with a bent knee, really guys, the goal is to try to maintain a nice tall spine and get a lot of blood flow into that hip flexor. So as I'm lifting my left knee, I'm bringing it up and slightly in towards my center line. I'm also trying to make sure that I'm pushing hard into the ground with my stance leg, activating that glute and that entire backside of my hip. I really want to make sure that the crown of my head stays tall and that I'm pulling my knee up to a tall spine as opposed to bringing my spine down to my knee. Up and down, nice and fluid, with enough speed that you create a lot of blood flow, but not enough speed where you feel like you're throwing your leg. So it's still under the control of the muscle, not too much momentum. For my straight leg flex extend, really my goal here is to try to create a little bit more length through the front side and back side of my leg. I have enough momentum to get some good height in my leg without feeling like I'm swinging it ballistically, like as I'm getting ready to warm up for a run. I want to make sure I feel all the muscles in the front side of my leg contract to lift my leg and all the muscles on the back side pull my leg behind me. My stance leg is working hard to be firm into the ground, and my posture is working hard to stay upright as I move my leg forward and backward. Again, I want to move my leg around my body, not have my body and my spine fall down to meet my leg.
For this rectus femoris myofascial stretch, really the goal here, guys, is to try to create as much length and openness from my knee all the way up to the front side of my chest on whatever side it is that I'm stretching here, okay? So what you're gonna do to get that position is I want you to take a small step forward with your, in this case, my right leg here. My left knee is gonna be back slightly more than 90 degrees. Okay, you'll feel why in a second. You may already feel a little stretch here in this position. Totally fine. Left hand is going to go on the floor. My right arm is going to go back and grab my ankle. And now I'm going to start to lean and lunge forward over my right foot. Okay. From this position here, you may already feel quite a bit of stretch here on the front side of your quad. Totally cool. Now you can see I'm contorted like a pretzel to get to this position. I got short arms and this is a little tight for me. So what I'm going to try to do here is from this contorted position, I'm going to try to breathe myself into a more neutral body. Okay. And already that's pulling this heel a little closer to my butt. So as I breathe myself more neutral, I'm going to start to pull this heel towards my butt. Now I feel a big pull in the front of my leg. That's okay. As I feel that pull, I want to try to relax into it. More pull is a good thing, but more resistance to the pull is a bad thing. So you want to try to feel the pull and then relax and let it go while improving your position. And now I just breathe and I pull, okay? The next step would be, I'm going to try to lengthen from my chest to my knee. So right here you can see I'm kind of compressed. The opposite of that would be to start to lift and lengthen as if I'm going to do a backflip. I want to keep pulling here and lifting and lengthening, pulling and lifting and lengthening. Okay, so you'll hold and you'll find that tension. For some of you, it may be really strong in the quad. It may be really strong at the upper part of the thigh. It may be strong from knee all the way up to lower abdomen or all the way up to your chest. That's good. By the end of this session or by the end of the stretch, you want to feel like you're in a more open position and that you're not only just stretching one isolated piece of your leg, but that you have a bigger stretch and tension and openness and connection from your knee all the way up to your chest. Okay, you will do that on both sides. For my rocker breathing, the goal of this exercise is to break down the squat and create more openness in the backside, outside of my hips, and more engagement through my groin to allow me to sit into a deeper squat and help my hips open up in the back, okay? So the position for my hands is gonna be slightly outside the width of my shoulders with my fingers turned inward. My eyesight and my chin's gonna look slightly up. I'm going to bend my elbows a little bit so I have a little bit of a shock absorber here at my elbow. Now, my knees are underneath my hips, which is about 2 fists apart. My feet are directly behind my knees, which is also about 2 fists apart. Now, what I want to make sure is that my rib cage is not falling towards the floor and arching my chest. So I'm going to pull my abs and my rib cage back towards the sky a little bit. From that position, now I'm going to try to establish the breathing down into my hips. And I'm just going to notice here at 90 degrees what feels tight. For me, it's my right side. My right side feels like it wants to do that. So I'm going to try to send both back pockets backwards as I pull my heart and my lungs towards my head. So that's the two ends of my body going in opposite directions. This is why it's so important to practice and master that breathing, because without that, you don't create any of this awareness. You don't really create any of the lasting stretching or openness that you're looking for. Heart and lungs going this way, breath pushing the hips back that way. Now, what I'm going to do is as I breathe in, I'm going to start to pull my knees together and towards my hands. So my knees are coming up and in like that. And I'm just going to sit back a millimeter. And then I'm going to exhale and hold that position and try to relax into that position. When I say relax into it, I don't just mean fall down. I mean, I keep my length, but I try to let go of the tension in my hips that is resisting or is not loving me being in this new posture. And now I play the tug of war game, which is as I breathe in, my butt goes back, but my heart and lungs go forward. If I start to have any curve here in my spine that looks like that, then I'm not anymore moving through my glutes. I'm moving through my lower back. So I want to be very conscious that I don't change the arch of my back here, that I keep this nice position, and that as I'm going back, I'm pulling myself into that position from my hip. Okay. So for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is in your program, you're going to be actively trying to pull yourself into a deeper squat and complementing that with your breathing and the length that you have in your last piece here is now for the rocker breathing. Okay, for my rocker breathing, the entire point of this is to tell my glutes and the loading of my hips to be able to turn on quickly and off quickly, just like I would when I'm walking or running or whatever. So I'm taking this new flexibility that I have, this new awareness that I have, and putting it into practice. So I have the exact same position as my rocker breathing, but now I'm in my rocker pulses. So I go back, I pull myself so I feel a little tension in my glutes, outside of my hips here. Okay, I feel a little tension there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to sit back into that. And I'm going to use that tension almost like a little trampoline to push me back forward. So as I'm going forward, so I'm just doing little 2-3 inch pulses. I don't have to be fast with it. It doesn't have to go like supersonic speed, because all I'm trying to do here is teach my knees, my hips, and my glutes to react and catch me right there to push me forward, and catch me to push me forward, and catch me, push me forward. Pulse. Okay. The rocker pulses, again, the entire point of this is to work yourself into a slightly deeper range of motion. And then from that place, catch yourself on your glutes and be reactive and control with the muscles of your hips. Again, too, make sure you maintain the length of your spine, a nice posture for your head and your breathing, your rib cage is good. All the principles from everything before, but now just with some more dynamic movement applied. So for my deep hinge hold or my back chain dominant hinge hold, what I'm really going to be working on is I'm really going to be working on sitting back and inward so that the outside, backside of my hips can open and expand, right? I'm not trying to sit outward. I'm trying to sit back and in, like I'm sitting towards the point of a triangle here, okay? So my position is, I want my feet underneath my hips, that's about a fist width apart, with my toes pointed straight forward or very slightly inward. I want to feel that my feet can open up and relax on the ground. Now, from this position, I'm going to try to pull my tailbone a little towards the floor by tucking it slightly, bring my head and my rib cage back over my heels, and try to just in general have a nice alignment for my spine before I get started. Okay, everything is very stacked here. Now, to initiate this movement, I'm going to imagine like someone is pulling my back pockets backward. Okay, that's going to start to pull me and my upper body forward. Now, I could just lean forward over my toes. I don't want that. I want my ass to be pulled backward to lead the way. That's going to make me heavier on my heel, which is okay. And now as soon as I start to feel a little bit of tension, so I have a little bit of bend in my knee, but as soon as I start to feel a little bit of tension, which for me is right about here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to breathe and I'm going to hold with the intention of doing the same thing I did earlier with my breathing belt exercise, which is try to breathe back through my hips or down into my hips. And as I do that, this part of my body where my heart is lengthening towards my head. Every breath I take in, I can create a little bit more length back and a little bit more length long through my head and through my heart. Okay. So my heart is in the part of my body that I actually want to move away from my hips. I want space here, right? So I have a nice flat back here. It's not excessively arched. I don't need to try to point my butthole to the sky. But as I do this, I'm trying to breathe my hips back more and my body longer towards my head, okay? Every breath in and every breath out is a chance for you to create a little bit more length and expansion and a little bit more sitting back into all of this tissue here, okay? The more stretch you feel, the better, but also at the same time, that stretching feeling is your body resisting the movement. So if I feel a lot of stretch, that means I have a lot of resistance to it. But if I don't feel any stretch, that means I'm relaxed into it, right? So finding the stretch is good, but being able to let go of the stretch is better. You never want to have all of your weight forward on your toes. You want it to be biased and moving backward towards your heel, okay? The last little piece here, guys, is that as you sit deeper, your knees are more than likely going to want to start to turn out and your feet are going to want to start to pick up like that. What I want you to do is as you sit back, I want you to roll the weight of your feet slightly inward and let your knees turn and your thighs turn slightly inward as you move your butt back. Okay, that's going to create more stretch and opening on the backside outside of your legs. Hold that deep hinge for as long as your program says.